You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, the Green Bay Packers are back on the field for voluntary OTAs. But before we get to that and all the other exciting Packers news, how about a word from our sponsor?
Too bad fans aren't really allowed to be present for OTAs right now. But when you do want to be present, fans, the Ticket King, Wisconsin's own Ticket King, has got you covered. Our show is sponsored once again by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Once again, that's theticketking.com. And if you're following with us on YouTube, thank you so much. You can see the link right there on your screen. You can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on Packers Talk Network with Gil and myself on YouTube. Click on the bell, turn the notifications on, join the discussion, chat with us live. We'd love to see and talk about the comments coming our way. And you know, Gil, it's not really real football that's going on right now, but it's still Packer related. OTAs are happening right now, and there's a lot more chatter than typical this time. We're essentially in the offseason where there's a little more chatter than usual. It's the most chatter we've had probably since the NFL draft.
Yeah, and look, Packers are on the field doing work to get ready for the upcoming season. Is it football? No, not exactly, but it's football related. It's stuff that leads to football. And it is also, perhaps more importantly, the first look you get at this rookie class, the draft picks, the undrafted free agents, the new players in front of an entire roster rather than just the rookie camp where they're, not a lot of veterans, if any. So it's a step forward as we begin the build-up to the 2025 NFL season.
And that build-up into the 2025 season, you wonder where does Jaire Alexander fit? That's the big question. It's been a question since the Packers season ended in Philadelphia back in January. Matt Schneidman of The Athletic reported this week a little bit of a new development that the Packers, they've offered Jaire a restructured contract. There is no resolution yet, but Jaire is planning on reporting to mandatory minicamp later in June, no matter what. There's still a chance a release could happen if a deal, an agreement on a restructured contract can't happen. Now, keep this in mind, Gil, where right now we're recording on May 29th, Thursday, May 29th. On Sunday, June 1st, Packers, if they release Jaire Alexander, they could save more than $17 million against the cap. That'd be a post-June 1 cut. And it sounds like overall, though, Gil, Green Bay's trying to make an effort to keep Jaire, and Jaire wants to stay with the Packers. Xavier McKinney even said to the media on Wednesday that everyone on the Packers wants Jaire back. Gil, are we going to have a resolution that's coming soon for Jaire and the Packers, whether it's Jaire coming back to stay with the Packers or departing and going off and leaving for another team?
I get the feeling that resolution will happen in the next month. And yeah. I think before July 1st, we're going to see this resolved one way or the other. And this is a little bit of a game of chicken going on right now between the team and the player and his agent. But I think ultimately, if you look at the situation, and I did do an article on Cheesehead TV addressing this, but ultimately, if the two sides can reach an agreement on a restructured contract, that is a win for both sides. It may not be possible. They may not be able to find numbers that work, but the way the market seems to be, if Jaire Alexander is released, which seems to be the alternative to signing a restructured deal, he'll probably get less money than what he would get in a restructured deal. And the Packers, certainly on the field, are a better team with a healthy Jaire Alexander than they are without him. That cornerback room is just not as deep and not as talented if Jaire isn't there. So I think both sides realize they kind of need each other, even if it's only for one more season. The question is just, crossing the T's and dotting the I's and finding numbers that make sense for both sides.
And you got to think, too, with that big looming cap savings that the Packers could have when June 1st hits in a few days, is that a lot of teams on the other side are thinking, who want Jaire Alexander, are thinking, well, you know what? Why would we trade for you when the Packers, it looks like they're going to release you in June because they could save a lot of money? It does sound like, though, it's trending in the right direction in terms of Jaire coming back to Green and staying with the Green Bay Packers. And like you said, Gil, cornerback looked to be a pretty pressing need in January. Once the season ended, you didn't know Jaire's future seemed murky, to say it best.
That's nice, yeah.
You added a corner in free agency and Nate Hobbs, who is a nice-looking player, a guy who's in his mid-20s, has a lot of versatility, can play in the slot, can play the nickel, can play outside. The Packers feel like obviously they could do a lot with him, but if you get Jaire Alexander to come back, having Nate Hobbs is just a bonus, and it's really you kind of just essentially save yourself by not using a premium pick on a cornerback in April's draft. So I hope something happens. Xavier McKinney obviously echoed it, like I was saying, where everyone wants him back. Jordan Love's been vocal about how he wants Jaire Alexander back. They want him back. The big question is Jaire bought in? And can some kind of agreement happen? To be determined.
Yeah. And, from several reports, Jaire wants to stay in Green Bay. That's what we've heard. How true that is remains perhaps to be seen. But realistically speaking, I just think it comes down to the path of Jaire's career, the money. It makes more sense if they can work out a deal. It just has to be done. You
just wonder what you think a restructure could look like. Is it essentially just not as much guaranteed money next year? You just wonder what the nuts and bolts of this are. And we don't really know. The only people who know are Jaire's agency, his representation, and Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball probably in the front office. Those are the only people who probably know what kind of deal, what kind of restructure is being discussed right now. I got to think, though, if Jaire does hit the open market, a team is going to be willing to pay him a good amount of money to come to their team. You would think. I don't know if it's going to be top cornerback money because he's been so limited the last few years, but someone's still going to take a chance on a guy if you let that guy hit the market for a guy who isn't in his 30s yet and still showed last year where, hey, he's a pretty darn good football player when he's all in.
When he's in the lineup, and that is the key, because he has played in 3 of the last 4 seasons. He has played 7 games or fewer, and the way you would structure it in my mind is you probably add a couple of void years to spread out, whatever bonus you want to spread out, and then you make a lot of this stuff incentive laden based on games played. If he plays 9 games, he gets X number of dollars. If he plays 12, he gets more. And if he plays all 17 games, he probably gets close to or equal to what he was going to make in the first place. But at least the Packers are covered to an extent if he doesn't.
Gil, do you think there's a possibility? I think of Josh Sitton when he was a surprise release at the end of training camp. What was that? Back in 2015. And it was the Packers are trying to trade him. He wanted a new contract, didn't get a new contract. Do you feel like there's a potential that Jaire could be with the Packers all throughout training camp, and then they just say, sayonara, we can't agree to a contract, a restructure or something like that? Do you think that could be a potential situation that occurs in Green Bay this summer?
I think it's unlikely. I wouldn't rule it out entirely. I think they want to have this settled before training camp starts.
Yeah.
And I just get the feeling if it's not, they will just release him. Unless they feel like progress is being made and they're close. But, I mean, what happens if he has no restructured contract and he gets hurt on the first day of training camp from a non-contact injury? You're on the hook for the whole dollar amount. Because there is an existing contract, I don't think the Packers would be wise to go that way.
I agree there. I agree. I sure hope that he's back. I really do,
Me
because
too.
he looked like he was thriving before the injury. He was thriving in Jeff Hafley's scheme, and he seemed to be putting together possibly a career year, but he just couldn't stay on the field. That knee was such an issue last year, and you just hope that he can be healthy and really be a factor in this scheme, because I think he has the potential to really just make this defense a truly elite defense.
And look, let's face it, Jaire Alexander would have every incentive in the world, because this would be the equivalent of a contract year.
Yeah.
Whether he's playing in Green Bay in 2026 or he's playing for any of the other teams, he has a lot to prove. And that, give him that kind of incentive, that monetary incentive right up front, he's going to want to have a monster year.
Yeah, and he could be definitely, if he is with the team this year, like we're assuming right now, like we're hoping for, it's pretty likely that he could be a cap casualty essentially after this year, going into 2026, because there's just not a lot of guarantees on that deal, and they could free up a good amount of money too. So with very little dead money. Now let's move to the offensive side of the ball, Gil, and a lot of eyeballs on the wide receiver room, obviously with the addition of Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, a couple of high draft picks, premium draft picks for the Green Bay Packers back in April. And that leaves the question, where does it leave the other wide receiver? Now, Jayden Reed has been the number one guy really the last couple of years, his first 2 years in the league. Jayden Reed has a new agent. You may have heard of him. His name's Drew Rosenhaus. He reportedly reached out to the Packers front office before the NFL draft to question Reed's role with the Packers. And this is shortly after Reed hired Rosenhaus as his new agent. And it made it sound like essentially that Jayden Reed was not very happy with his role with the Packers in the offense and potentially on this team going forward with the new additions of Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. He made clear after OTAs on Wednesday his role in the offense. It's not an issue. He doesn't care how many targets he gets. He just wants to win. Matt LaFleur has also echoed, saying Reed's been nothing but great as a leader in the wide receiver room for the Packers this offseason, for the new guys in that room in general. Gil, that's the big question, though, is Jayden Reed wide receiver one? It sounds like with this whole report that it was Adam Schefter that put out a tweet after the draft, and it just seemed like it was just Drew Rosenhaus kind of doing his due diligence for his new client. But that does beg the question with this group, with the additions of Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, is Jayden Reed wide receiver one on this team? Would you consider him wide receiver one?
I consider him the incumbent, and then he has to earn it, just like any other player. Just like if Jaire Alexander stays, he has to earn cornerback one. If he restructures his deal and is terrible, he's not going to keep his job. So, bottom line is that Jayden Reed has led the Packers in catches in each of his first 2 seasons in the league. He is the returning number one receiver, even though he only played like 65% of snaps out of the slot, which makes the fact that he led the team in catches even more impressive. Mm-hmm. But he has some things to work on to be more consistent. Got to work on the hands a little bit. I think Matt LaFleur needs to use him a little bit better in the second half of the season. He didn't seem to be doing that as well as he did in the first half. But the most important thing I think that came out this week was the fact that the meeting between Rosenhaus and the Packers front office was before the draft.
Yeah.
It wasn't a reaction to, oh my gosh, you drafted 2 receivers in the first 3 rounds. Is my client in trouble? It was something that he was discussing before they even selected Golden and Williams. So I'm a lot less concerned about this than I might have been when I first heard it.
Adam Schefter's timing with tweets. He does stuff on purpose. He sits on information. That's what you got to learn too when you're following these national guys like Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, or Jordan Schultz, whoever it may be. They sit on a lot of stuff, and it just happened that Adam Schefter's like, oh, hey, the Packers just drafted a couple receivers. I'm going to put in this nugget. I'm going to just tweet out this nugget that Drew Rosenhaus sent me even before the draft. And it's kind of a sly move, kind of very sneaky and everything like that, and very deceiving. But that made me feel better too, that meeting was set up before the draft too. And Jayden Reed has been nothing but a good presence, I feel like, on this football team. He has made the Green Bay Packers a better football team. I do think he was playing through a lot of injuries at the end of last year and really was struggling. The body got beat up quite a bit. Hopefully, Matt LaFleur can find a way to not put him in harm's way so often, maybe fewer jet sweeps and end arounds and just more time at receiver and less time in the backfield. It just seems like Jayden Reed's kind of wired that way, but I like to believe that he is wide receiver one right now. And like you said, him being the incumbent, probably a good way to put it, but Jayden Reed's probably your best player at receiver right now. He's your most proven guy just from his first 2 years alone.
Yeah, and I really like what he could do, even if he is a Spartan. So I won't hold it against him. But yeah, I really have always liked what he's been able to add to this Green Bay offense. And I don't think he's reached his full potential yet. So I think we could see another bump in year 3. And quite honestly, if he could do what he did in the first 9 games of last year for a full season, he could be lethal.
Yeah, and that was a lot of talk last year was, well, the Packers don't have a wide receiver one. They don't have an WR1. And Josh Jacobs, even when he was talking on Radio Row before the Super Bowl about how we need a proven veteran wide receiver, and it kind of offended guys like Dontavian Wicks and Jayden Reed, who were outspoken on social media. Now, Josh Jacobs did say that he did talk to those guys after his appearance on Radio Row just to clear the air and everything. And Josh Jacobs said, yeah, I said what needed to be said, where it's like, it's a good leadership. It's a good leader. It's good leadership and accountability, essentially, just not hiding from what needs to be said. But you wonder, a true wide receiver one, though, you look at a guy like a Justin Jefferson or prime Devontae Adams, whoever you may say, where they have the ability to just gravitate an entire defense towards them. Does Jayden Reed have that capability in him? Do you think we could potentially see where it's like teams just go out of their way to make sure that he is not a factor in games moving forward?
Capability, yes. Has he realized it yet? No. And he may never realize it, but we'll see. I kind of think he's maybe a half step below that level of the elite receiver, which is not to say he can't be darn good, that he couldn't be a difference maker, but to be that one guy that every defense feels we have to account for him on every play. I don't know if he's ready to rise to quite that level. What do you think?
I'm with you too. He's not there, but I feel like there's so much talent in this receiver room. They're very young, but there's so much talent that you just want to hope that you can make a defense just have to really just really be honest with every single receiver and know that any single receiver on this team could make an impact. And whether it's Dontavian Wicks, who always seems to get open but just never seems to catch the ball, Romeo Doubs, who's a very good red zone threat, Christian Watson, when healthy, just that deep ball threat who just stretches a defense vertically. And then Jayden Reed, just wherever he goes, you bring him on jet motions and everything. Just a guy who can find the end zone and just has a nose for the ball and everything, and just is really just a stud of a player when he is healthy and when he is really locked in and everything like that. So I do think he is capable, Gil. I do agree, but we just have to see it before we can actually say it.
Yeah, that is the key. And look, you got to prove it on the field. Potential means you haven't done it yet. So let's hope the potential becomes results.
Let's hope year 3 is a little better for Jayden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, and just this next year, hopefully a better year for the wide receiver group in general. And speaking of the wide receiver group, a guy who's going to be missing quite a bit of time is obviously Christian Watson. Remember, he tore his ACL in that regular season finale against the Bears on January 5th. Matt LaFleur was asked about Watson after OTAs on Wednesday, and it's something that kind of piqued my interest, Gil. The antennas went up where Matt LaFleur said he believes Watson is ahead of schedule with his rehab, and that's a very good thing to see. He was on the field kind of running around everything. He's not cutting, he's not running routes or anything like that, but he's out there, and it's promising to see that he's out there. Brian Gutekunst even said that they're hoping maybe to get him back midseason. He said that back in February. And Gil, let me ask you this though. If he is ahead of schedule, what's the logical best case scenario for the return of Christian Watson. Typically, an ACL, it could be anywhere from 9 to 12 months. Could he be on the lower end of that? Could he defy that? Who knows? What do you think?
I think we are talking like at the very earliest, the very most optimistic, like beginning of November. Half a season is going to go by without him. And the one thing you do not want to do is rush him back. Yes, he's ahead of schedule, and I'm putting that in air quotes, but, you know, he could have a setback. I hope not, but at any point. And
it's human. It can happen to anyone.
His body is human, just like everybody else's, even though he's really good at football. And hopefully he continues to make progress and he's healthy, but rushing him back and having him re-injure it or have a setback is the worst case scenario, not just for the Packers this year, but for Christian Watson's future health. Yeah. So be conservative with this. Better safe than sorry. If it means he comes back a couple of weeks later, but comes back better, I'd rather go that route than say, oh my gosh, we really need him in the lineup right away, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure he's playing whether he's ready or not.
Now, some of the shortest recovery times really that's been documented by NFL players when it comes to the ACL. Former Viking running back Adrian Peterson, he recovered from a torn ACL a little more, 8 months and 2 weeks from the injury. Former Seahawks linebacker and first-round pick Jordan Brooks recovered from an ACL tear in just under 8 months. So if he's super, super ahead of schedule and he defies the odds, 8 months is probably the absolute best case scenario, which means that he could be ready to play by opening day at Lambeau against the Lions on September 7th. Now, Gil, I'm with you. I'm gonna say right away, I'm with you where I think he's back in early November at best, back by game 8, week 9 or so. That's about 10 months from the injury. And I want to bring that up because notable Packers to have torn their ACLs recently. We know about David Bakhtiari, where he tore his on New Year's Eve in 2020. He didn't play again until the 2021 regular season finale at Detroit on January 9th of 2022. Didn't play in the playoff game against the Niners. He played sparingly in 2022, played one game in 2023, and hasn't played a snap since. His career is pretty much over because of that torn ACL. Elton Jenkins, though, another lineman, had a torn ACL November 21st of 2021, and he returned in 10 months. He returned September 18th in 2022, week 2 of that season. Rashawn Gary, then, lastly, tore his ACL November 6th, 2022 at Detroit. He returned September 10th, 2023 in week 1, albeit on a limited snap count, but essentially returned to the field after a 10-month recovery. So if it is really best case scenario, Gil, obviously NFL history is 8 months. Packers history, recent history is 10 months. So I would think November at earliest is probably best case scenario. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, and look, I want the best for Christian Watson. I'd love to have him in the lineup as soon as possible, but not at the expense of his long-term health.
For sure. The Packers are a better football team when he is on the field. He's unselfish. He blocks his butt off. He's a heck of a runner. He's so big. He's so athletic. I hope he gets back sooner rather than later. But, hey, thankfully the Packers are not – they don't have the reputation, their medical staff, for rushing guys back too soon. Even though Jaire Alexander may disagree, Martellus Bennett from the past may disagree, but they've gone to show – I feel like back in the day Aaron Rodgers was frustrated with his collarbone stuff that they wouldn't clear him when he felt good, yet they were so hell-bent. It was like, you're not ready yet. You're not ready. Yep.
And they still squeezed into the playoffs that year when he came back and helped beat the Bears, to Randall Cobb on that great play in the last minute of that game. But, yeah, you'd rather be conservative with these things, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure right there. And, Gil, obviously there's been a lot of chatter, like we said, at OTAs. What else have we heard from OTAs that has really kind of piqued your interest? I'll tell you right away. Matt LaFleur saying that Edgerrin Cooper is up to about 240 pounds, 11 pounds heavier than his rookie year, but still it's a good 11 pounds. I mean, you and I could gain 11 pounds if we just get a few pizzas and sit in the living room all weekend, like we could balloon pretty quickly, Gil, but Edgerrin Cooper's added good weight, but he's still got his burst. That's something that's kind of that had kind of raised my hairs a little bit. Like, oh boy, like, all right, we got a bigger edger in Cooper and still just as fast and athletic. Besides that, or like, if you want to elaborate on that or anything else you've heard, tell us what's really sparked your interest.
Well, I mean, that obviously was one thing. And the thought that, Cooper could be better, faster, bigger, and more importantly, perhaps be able to handle more wear and tear. He didn't have a lot of snaps last year.
No.
So we'll see. But I'm excited about that because his potential is just so high. I think he can be a future perennial all-pro kind of a player. The other thing that sort of caught my eye was how the team was lining up on the offensive line and in the secondary. And obviously Elton Jenkins not there because of his contract situation. And, the way they sort of lined up, it was Rasheed Walker, it was Aaron Banks at left guard, and then Sean Ryan and who was lining
Jacob
up?
Monk.
Yes, Jacob Monk, who leapfrogged Kadeem Telfort and is now sort of moving in there with the guards and the centers, and then Zach Tom. So I found that interesting, that the progress of Jacob Monk in year 2. And then in the secondary also, where no Jaire Alexander. So what they did was they had Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon in base. And then when it came to do nickel, they ended up with Carrington Valentine on the boundary and moving Hobbs to the slot. So again, it's early. It's not even full contact.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, very preliminary things, but it does give you an indication of what the coaches expect and who they're giving first crack to.
It's the initial plan that they're trying to figure out right now. They're trying to really see how everything looks and see how guys move and how guys play off of each other too. So I was going to say that about the offensive line too. In addition to that, where Packers second round rookie Anthony Belton, where we're projecting he could possibly be the starting right guard in 2026. So Sean Ryan he's going to be a free agent after this season. I don't think the Packers are going to bring him back. I think he's going to be too expensive on the free agency market. But hey, there was a guy in Philadelphia named Mekhi Becton, a big boy like Anthony Belton, who turned out to be a pretty darn good right guard for the Super Bowl champion Eagles. Maybe that's what they're thinking with Belton. But Belton was actually lining up at left tackle with the second unit. So you wonder, he played left tackle in college, so he's familiar there. But you wonder if they're just cross-training him like they do a lot of other linemen. And if that's just kind of what the Packers do, just try to learn every position as much as possible.
Yeah, you never know when you need somebody to switch. So they value versatility, and this is why.
And I want to also note, too, Matt LaFleur did also confirm that the Packers, they're going to be going to Indianapolis to have a joint practice with the Colts before their preseason game this August. And then they will also host the Seattle Seahawks for a joint practice before the preseason finale in later August, right before roster cutdowns. So a couple of interesting situations. I like the joint practices. I think you get a lot of good work out of it. And it's good when a team where we've seen too many times, not really with the Packers, but around the league, where guys are just essentially getting in fights and training camp fights all the time. And it's just a matter of like, hey, we need to go hit someone else. So I feel like the joint practices are a good way to be like, hey, we need to go hit someone else. Let's go hit someone else.
And usually they fight someone else too. So it's
just, as Ted Thompson said, just do not throw a punch, because it's a good way to break your thumb, break your hand. And that's a season ender potentially right there. So
basically, yeah,
just be smart, get the steam out, but in a positive and constructive way. Gil, before we wrap up with some trivia and send us out, what articles you have coming up on Packers Post, Cheesehead TV? Obviously, a lot coming out of OTAs, and you teased a few things earlier in this episode, too.
Yeah, like I said, Cheesehead, I took a look at the Jaire Alexander situation, why it would be advantageous for the Packers to hold on to him if they can. And for Packers Post, I did focus a lot on what was going on at OTAs and a little bit about, first-round pick Matthew Golden.
Green and golden, baby. Green and golden. Matthew Tan, thank you for chiming in on the YouTube chat. You said joint practices, the other team will know what our game plan is. Well, guess what? We'll know what their game plans are too. And it's a very it's very vanilla stuff that you're doing when you have another team involved. You're not giving away the whole kitchen sink. You're not. Like, that's just not how it works. But hey, it's a constructive thought, Matthew. Thank you for chiming in. Thanks for your commentary. Gil, you ready for some trivia?
I am ready for some trivia.
All right, sounds good. Well, like we just mentioned, the Seattle Seahawks, they're coming to Green Bay to play the Packers in the preseason finale in August. Before then, the Packers and Seahawks, they'll have a joint practice in Titletown. As of now, it'll be a bit of a homecoming for a couple of Seahawk players. Gil, name the 2 current Seattle Seahawks who were originally drafted by the Packers.
2 current Seahawks who were originally drafted by the Packers.
And it's not easy, and these are both new additions to the team this year.
Oh, boy.
One on offense, one on defense.
Of course.
Skill position guys, too.
The what?
Skill position guys as well.
Okay. I am literally drawing a blank, so
that's okay. We're not a Seahawks podcast.
No, we are not.
Hey, let's see where Gil is at with his homework and everything like that. But anyone in the group chat, anyone in the chat in general, if you have any idea, go for it. If you're Googling, you're out, you're disqualified. It doesn't count, and Gil gets all the points, and I lose money because I had to bet that that we wouldn't answer it before I answered it. So, anyways, the answer: cornerback Shamar John Charles and wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Packers drafted John Charles in the 5th round of the 2021 draft. Appeared in 20 total games with Green Bay in 2 seasons, with a majority of his snaps and playing time coming on special teams. The Packers, they drafted MVS in round 5 of the 2018 NFL draft, caught 123 passes for 2,153 yards and averaged 17.5 yards per catch and scored 13 touchdowns in 4 seasons with the Packers. MVS left the Packers after the 2021 season for the Kansas City Chiefs, where he was a really integral part of that Chiefs Super Bowl winning team in 2022 and 2023. Split time between Buffalo and New Orleans in 2024. Now, Gil, there is another former Packer who did play for the Packers, but he's currently with the Seahawks, and he wasn't drafted by the Packers. He's actually drafted by Seattle, but spent 1 season in Green Bay. Can you name him by any chance?
Drafted by Seattle's. What year did he spend in Green Bay?
2022. And he was a big boy.
A lineman.
Yep.
And he's back with Seattle now.
He's back with Seattle. Yeah, he spent some time with Seattle, spent some time with Kansas City Chiefs as well. He was drafted by Seattle in round 2 of the 2016 NFL draft.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was here in 2022. He was a decent player, but essentially he was a stopgap to help Devontae Wyatt come along.
You're talking about Jaron Reed.
I am talking about Jaron Reed. Yes, I am. And then also former Packers linebacker coach Kirk Olivadotti. He's the current linebacker coach for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So obviously there's a lot of Packer ties with the Seahawks already, with John Schneider being the general manager there, who used to be co-workers with Brian Gutekunst, used to work under Ron Wolf, like Brian Gutekunst as well, and Ted Thompson. So there's always some ties. And hey, I figure why not? It's kind of, we're in the bare bones of the offseason right now. So I'm grasping at straws right now, Gil, when it comes to trivia. So my apologies. Yeah, I should have warned you ahead of time. Hey, we got some Seahawks trivia coming, just to let you know.
Jim Zorn.
Hey, legend, man. The lefty legend, baby.
Lefty, and he played for the Packers in 1985. So there you go. There's another connection.
Well, I should have asked about that. What am I doing? So what am I doing?
All good, man. It's all good. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us this week. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter or to ask us questions. Or you could email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go!
Go Pack Go!